At long last, Star Citizen Alpha 3.10 has made its way into the verse, and boy, that was quite a long wait. The PTU lasted almost a month and a half and was plagued by a handful of nasty bugs that actually did make their way into the verse. And since this is the full review of the patch, we will of course talk about those issues later. But first, let's talk about the good news that came with this. Persistence, it actually is working, and I was able to keep all of my money from the previous build as well as the previous equipment bought in previous builds, and that really felt good. Of course, not everyone was this lucky, and I've seen in the comment section that some of you had the bad surprise to find out that they lost everything, and that is always unfortunate. Other players, like Segalion, only lost their pants, which is going to reinforce DG360's impression that there's an issue with pants, and overall, it does show that there is some work left to be done when it comes to having a reliable persistence in the verse. Anyway, that being said, guys, welcome to the channel. I am the Radkeeter, and in today's video, I will fully review Star Citizen's latest patch, Alpha 3.10. As always, we will go over the numerous bug fixes that have been brought to this patch. We will review what was done to improve the overall quality of life. We will review the patch's game-changing elements. We'll discuss the overall quality of the patch and its punctuality, from which, given the fact that the patch was delivered a month and 6 days late, you can already guess the score, right? And also, we will talk about its core tech, and we will go over the numerous features in details. So, if that sounds like a good program, without further ado, let's go, let's get down to it, let's get started. Let's talk about bug fixes first, and this one is kind of a mixed bag for me because the PTU was quite bug-ridden, and the devs have fought really hard to bring us a somewhat playable patch that still contained a lot of bugs, but was still pushed to the live servers because at some point you just need to release the damn thing, you know what I mean, right? Star Citizen Alpha 3.10.1 aims at fixing some of the most annoying bugs of the initial patch. Trade outposts are no longer too high to access. Assets don't spawn at the last second anymore, or players no longer clip through the game world on random occasions. All of that is great, but there are still some annoying issues that have been around for years that still need to be taken care of. And no, I am not talking about NPCs standing on chairs or NPCs having weird interactions between each other in public areas. Star Citizen, yeah, is a very progressive game after all, but how about fixing ship repairs and refueling once and for all? How about the missing HUD, the missing HUD that forces you to reset your account? And then we can have when can we have a reliable star map or quantum travel system? These are issues that have been plaguing our game experience for far too long, and CIG is not even acknowledging them in patch notes despite the issues being repeatedly reported in the issue consoles. I feel like I'm being very generous here when I'm giving a 4 out of 10 when it comes to bug fixes. The new turret mechanics makes it worthwhile to have a crew or to be part of a crew, and it has improved the overall gameplay experience for quite a lot of people. Also, all ships now benefit from the UI, which looks neater as it offers a better visual experience when flying. Combat missions now appear to be paying a little bit more, which should encourage players to do some ECN missions or bounty hunting. Unfortunately, the devs did not go all the way, and they seem to be limited to 6,000 Alpha UEC for regular bounty hunting gigs, which is the bare minimum for multiplayer missions, in my opinion. Ship-wise, the Kratual, Buccaneers, Caterpillars, and M50 owners have seen their ship being buffed a little bit, which is rejoicing, especially for owners of the Xi'an Scout, which was pretty useless until now. Last but not least, the trade app is also wonderful and is really pulling the score up to a 9 out of 10. Oh boy, there's quite a lot to say here, and overall it's very positive. First, I'd like to give a huge shout out to the flight experience team devs because to me, it feels like I'm having the best flight sensations in the game since the beginning of the Alpha 3.x branch. Ships now feel believable in atmospheres, and with the addition of jerk, they feel like they have mass too. And when I'm flying a Starfarer or a Caterpillar, I do feel like I am at the helm of a massive ship. I love it. Star Citizen Alpha 3.10 also introduces a new targeting methodology which may seem daunting at first but ends up being more intuitive, especially in combat. To make it short, you go to the key to select the target that is right in front of you, which is T, which obviously stands for target, which makes a lot of sense, and from there you can decide on whether you want to pin this target or keep it for later or try to target some of its subcomponents. Sure, older players like myself need to relearn everything, and this is annoying, but newer players will have an easier time figuring out what's going on, and that is very important. This patch also introduces a new multi-delivery mission system for people who enjoy being space delivery guys, which is a really pleasant activity if you have a Pisces or an Avenger. Right now, those missions are limited to local planetary system, so they don't pay so well overall for the kind of time and that you are using. It feels like a waste of time, because who works for 30 minutes for 4,000 Alpha UEC? Seriously. However, devs have also said that in future patches they will introduce interplanetary deliveries, and eventually, further down the line, they will also have interstellar deliveries from one solar system to another, and they will definitely pay better and be more exciting. Anyway, all of that gives us a score of 8 out of 10. This patch won't be as life-changing as 3.9 was, but at the same time, it introduces quite a few changes that are quite positive and gives a strong buff and improvements to the game. Yeah, 8 out of 10 here. Let's be honest, guys, at launch in terms of quality, Star Citizen Alpha 3.10 was not the best patch we've ever had. It featured a long list of known issues that still needed to be fixed, and so 3.10.1 hit the PTU just a week after its release to the PU. The fact that many players are reporting that they had a better experience in the PUTU, including myself, also speaks volume, and this can't solely be attributed to the poor state of game servers. The fact that no one figured out that SMO13 on Microtech was placed too high above the ground and that no one could get in is further evidence that the QA team has internal problems to fix. This is not just something that should not be happening, it's just unacceptable. Speaking of servers, I won't elaborate further on those. I mean, enough has been said about them. But we know that we have reached a critical point long ago, and that server meshing is desperately needed at this point. In the end, this category gets a 2 out of 10. Now, in terms of punctuality, I don't like to give 10s or 0s, but these delays are getting ridiculous. Delivering the patch a month and a week late grants CIG a rare 0 out of 10. I also think that it's time to have a serious discussion about the pertinence of having a major patch every quarter. As I mentioned in the previous video, I think that the system has reached its limits and that CIG needs to reorganize themselves in order to be able to deliver new content and updates on a regular and reliable basis. On to the features now, and we'll start with the characters, and here I really hesitated giving CIG a 0, but I eventually decided to give them the benefit of the doubt and thought that there might be a logical explanation as of why Eddie Parr suddenly disappeared out of the roadmap while nearing completion and has never reappeared ever since, and you know what? I will give them a 0, because we had an entire segment about it in Inside Star Citizen where we were told that he would appear, we were told that he would reappear also, and he didn't, and CIG didn't go into details regarding of what happened and what it's going to take to get him ready. I mean, that is typical CIG lack of transparency, and that gets them a 0. That score is also comforted by the fact that there is nothing else developed for this patch character-wise. Locations now, and nothing groundbreaking here. The Grimax improvements are nice and allow for large ships to finally get to the unlawful stations, but the new racing club is empty and is only here for future features we will have in future patches. The Microtech shop improvements are passable at best. Sure, the Microtech store looks gorgeous, but who needs to change their Mobiglass color? I mean, seriously. The souvenir shop is also a joke to me, and in my opinion, Pickle's only suitable place is a recycling center. The only reason I'm giving locations a 5 out of 10 is because they will be useful in the future when we will have races again and sim pods in the game. Giving the ability to AI to be able to better avoid collisions and hazards should in theory make AI better and overall more believable. The fact that they now have a variety of different weapons at their disposal and that they can also take cover behind whatever they can find in their environment should in theory make FPS combat more of a challenge, and it is, when servers are in a good shape, which by now you should know that it usually isn't the case. In reality, AI ships often crash into asteroids or stations, and you will often find FPS AI cowardly hide behind boxes, patiently waiting to be slaughtered if they are not actually just standing in the open doing nothing. The same can be said for the bartender, which is going to usher a new era in the verse in which NPCs will actually go on by their businesses when you are not interacting with them. When the server is running properly, they are awesome, but when servers struggle, they can be a real pain, which is why overall AI gets an average score of 5 out of 10. CIG desperately needs to figure out how to improve server performance. Let's talk about gameplay now, and with 10 entries on the roadmap, this is going to be a long one. We start with the player training app, which is a blessing. We finally have easy, simple player-to-player transactions, and this is something we have been asking for a long time. It is working very well and makes our lives easier. Thank you, CIG, for making it right. Next, we have some impoundment improvements, which were primarily designed to stop griefers from pad ramming, which is something I have yet to see in Star Citizen Alpha 3.10, so I guess that it is working too. With new electric weapons came electron damage, and I think that the new visual effects of this new type of damage are particularly impressive, especially when you hit a group of targets, as this type of damage spreads to nearby enemies as well. Right now we are just having its first implementation, but in the future, electron weapons will have the ability to stun, which will be perfect for bounty hunters. Star Citizen Alpha 3.10 also brought some much needed improvements to turrets and fixed weapons, and I can confirm that it is much easier to hit your targets when you are in a turret. Fixed guns now also benefits from a slight aim assist that doesn't make it near impossible to hit your targets anymore. Now, don't get me wrong, we are still very far from the level of assist we have, and we benefit from gimbal guns, but if you have a decent level of skills and accuracy, you should now expect to hit your targets if you are aiming properly, and to me, this feels very rewarding. For your information, I have actually removed all of my gimbal guns from all of my combat ships, and I've replaced them with fixed weapons. That is how comfortable I feel about them. Now, we also have thrusters, efficiency curves, and aerodynamics, which is basically a rework of the flight model. I've already made a video about this a few weeks ago, and I think that ships now feel more realistic when we fly them. They really feel like they have a mass and that they are all different in their approach to flights, which I also think is overall better for immersion, as you now really have a different flight experience every time you hop in a different ship. Well done, CIG. With the revised flight model comes a new revised targeting methodology, which is more complicated than the previous system, as it adds more keys for each targeting functionality, but was designed with turret gameplay in mind. The ability to pinpoint a target is a prime example of new multi-crew quality of life, as gunners can now identify targets more easily, making a ship with a crew far deadlier than before. Alpha 3.10 also saw the first implementation of body dragging, which is kind of useless now, but will be useful in the future when we'll have proper bounty hunting and medical gameplay. We've also been introduced to high-speed combat mechanics, which gives penalties to players who fly their ships a little bit too fast. It hinders your ship abilities such as accuracy, missile locking and targeting, and also forcing players to fly at a slowly pace and at a closer range. As far as I'm concerned, I am all for close-range ship-to-ship combat. I think that it is important to visualize your enemies and the damage that you are inflicting them, so to me, this is a step into the right direction. The ship HUD reworks also brings in Star Citizen Alpha 3.10 the HUD that was introduced to the Gladius and the Pisces to all of the other ships, and it brings a clever and more visible look, and I think that overall we now have about 100 different ships and variants, so this must have been quite a lot of work to update every single one of them, but it is done and the result feels very satisfying. Finally, we have the revised restricted areas, which brought to us the landing splines To me, this is something that was not necessary. I mean, sure, we want to avoid players flying above populated areas like in real life, but why not giving players hefty fines and penalties when people do so, instead of forcing us to go through an annoying no-fly zone system that goes crazy if we decide to ignore those ugly-looking splines. I don't like augmented reality, and the less UI we have, the better. To me, this is a bust, and the reason why gameplay is not getting a 10, but a 9 out of 10 instead. So, what did we get this quarter regarding ships and vehicles? Well, a skin for the Archimedes and a trivial rework of the M50. Luckily, we got also the Grey Cat Rock for, the little mining buggy that can eventually allow anyone with a ship big enough to carry it to mine for decent payouts. Still, it's a little weak, and the P72 skin joke is a pill that is tough to swallow, and I'll give it a 3 out of 10. Let's talk about weapons and items. Alpha 3.10 brought us a new lineup of very cool weapons from the Lightning Bolt company, as well as a very decent submachine guns from Gemini. Those guns offer something unique to the game and have all their place in the verse, and so this category deserves a 9 out of 10. As far as core tech goes, Hypemaps makes planets look gorgeous as they have ever been, and new ocean shades also add some extra eye candy when it comes to sun reflection. Nothing groundbreaking here, but these are nice touches, and this gets a 7 out of 10. Add it all up, and the features of Star Citizen Alpha 3.10 get a 5 out of 10. It brings a lot to the table when it comes to gameplay, and as well as new weapons, which are very welcome additions. However, roadmap padding and mismanagement drag the score down. If only we had been updated on what's going on with Eddie Parr. Overall, Star Citizen Alpha 3.10 gets a score of 4.5 out of 10, which is better than 3.9's but still under the average. The patch's score was lowered by its unacceptable delay and very poor roster of new ships and vehicles, as well as its huge amount of bugs, which make it utterly unplayable for many of you, as you can see, for example, in this footage. That's very unfortunate because Alpha 3.10 is really worth playing, especially its flight mechanics improvements. Let's hope that the upcoming Alpha 3.10 will fix the most annoying issues. And that's it for this review, guys. If you like this kind of content, you know what to do. Also, if you want to support my work, the link to my Patreon page is also in the description. Any support is much appreciated. I wish you all a wonderful day. Later on this channel, we'll have a Star Wars Squadrons related video, so stay tuned. This is the Eradicator, and I'll see you guys later. Je crois que les NPC ont spawné parce que je pas les rencontrer. Où ça tire? Et tu vas où? Je sais pas où c'est. Ah, t'es là. Ah oui, c'est n'importe quoi les sorts. Allez, on descend. Donc il reste encore 4 mecs. Ah, il y en a un. Oh mon dieu. Le son des tirs du combat, il est horrible aussi. Pourquoi? Je suis obligé de le baisser en stream, mais il est horrible le son. Bon, ça marche bien. Oh là, il y a un mec. Mais je peux même pas tirer. Non mais... Attends, je suis presque mort là, attends, ça pas du tout. Appuie sur C. Voilà. Mon pistolet qui voulait pas tirer quand le mec il courait. Ah oui, c'est un bug. Ah ouais, j'en découvre de plus en plus des bugs. Ah, je te laisse avec le vaisseau si ça te dit. Non, ça ira, je vais me tuer, puis voilà. Allez, c'est bon, je vais plus parler de ce jeu avant un petit moment.